It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Man, that's always exciting to bring Wes McArtor from NEXERA, especially in this time that we're all in the imaging channel, and as we start to head back out into the marketplace. Wes, how are you doing, man?
You know, Ray, we're doing really well. We're very blessed to have a lot of loyal customers, and we're busy out there helping them try to figure out how to navigate this just like we are.
Well, I got to be honest. We all know that we've had some reduction in revenue, basically from hardware and service. No, doesn't take data to tell us that. But it would be interesting if you could share with us a little bit about the data and kind of where those, volume drops offs might be. But more importantly, what's going on in the marketplace over this last quarter. And, I believe, and, I think this would probably be the first time I say this publicly, but I don't believe we're ever going to return to 100% of where we were ever. Those days are done. I believe that the most we can probably get is 70%, and that'll be in a vertical application. But folks, we're going to be somewhere between 70 and 50% of original revenue by the year 2022, 2023. And, coming out of this, we're going to have some peaks. People are going to close up some stuff that was already on the table. But we should see some freezing of budgets, and we got some things we got to work through. And managing without data or trying to plan without data is it's just insanity. So share some data with us and tell us some things that we got to be on the lookout for, Wes.
Well, obviously, as you mentioned, page counts plummeted during this lockdown. You know, typically 50 to 60% of the page volume just disappeared. Obviously, the service call load went down, forcing a lot of people to furlough technicians, and parts spend followed that trend. What we found really interesting was that the dealers that we have that were early adopters of devices as a service actually didn't see a corresponding decrease in revenue because print became part of the, as you always coined it, as the IT staff.
Mm-hmm.
And because print is a small component of the total spend of an IT stack, the customers didn't change the amount that they paid based on the fact they weren't printing, because the IT stack was part of the critical infrastructure that they had to maintain, and print was just part of it.
No, it's awesome, and I
So,
think when you think about it, when I was working with ImageQuest and Milton down there, and there was a point when we did some due diligence. Milton sold off his print business, but when we looked at the revenue of the print equipment, that's hardware and its services, it came out to an average of 1.2% of the total spend of those IT customers where we controlled the infrastructure. And you're right. Who in the world is going to call up a vendor and say, "Hey, I need to cut 1% off my bill"? It's just
right.
not reality, and that those dollars just get absorbed into the total picture. So that's a great point, and obviously data has proven that. Is there anything that you can tell us between the A3 and A4? We talk a lot about the difference in the services. We talk about obviously the market has been moving to A4. All the manufacturers' growth has been in A4, not A3. So what's the data telling us with regards to those two?
Well, backing up to a study that we did last year, and then I just redid it during this quarantine period, where we were looking at the comparable differences between those two product segments, the A3, A4. We've got almost 1.7 million devices in each of those two categories. So we were looking at things like parts per call. So in the A4 world, parts per call is like $23 in parts per call versus almost $50 for A3. Average calls per machine. So the A4 was getting 0.16 calls per month. So obviously in a time frame, they're not going to have a call every month. Whereas in the A3 world, sorry, it was zero point 0.4. So almost a third as many service calls. The percentage of machines that would have service on any given A4 product, about 40% of them will have a call in a 6-month time frame. In A4 world, or A3 world, that's almost 70%.
Wow.
The volume difference is not that dramatic. The average monthly volume of the A3s is only 6,788 pages a month, where in the A4 was just a little shy of 2,000.
Wow. So basically, you're telling me that the A3s, and that was a couple million devices on the A3 population, right?
1.7 million.
So the average volume is 6,700 pages. Folks, other than 11 by 17, come on, let's be real here. So the reality of it is we had a massive exodus, whether you want to call it an exodus, however it happened, where we lost a lot of the human capital in the service departments. That was an adjustment in cost. People have to adjust their costs. So coming back out of this, it only makes it just makes more sense to move more A4s than A3s if it'll hit those volumes and you don't have any application issues. So, well, data doesn't lie. Wes, let me ask you a question, because, we have to cut cost, and dealers had to make some tough decisions around human capital. And a lot of times, it's a lot easier when you're contracting out some types of services, especially in a time where we're going to come back into an economy that, let's just call it a recession, whatever it is, it's not going to be where it was. And so dealerships have to prepare themselves for an adjustment in not only human capital, they have to adjust their cost. Is there anything that BEI can do from a standpoint of a virtual running my service department for me as a dealer owner without having to have some supervisor or some VP of service, and I want to go to a dealer that's in that $10 million range, maybe $7 to $12 million?
Well, we've got an awful lot of really, really talented service managers. But when we look at the top performing dealers that we have in our customer base, the one thing that really is unique is that some of the most successful service guys are not service guys at all. Mm-hmm. The average service manager generally kind of moved up through the ranks from being a technician. But the really aggressive and the most, what I would consider successful, are operations guys. Mm-hmm. People who don't know how to turn a wrench, and they don't necessarily empathize with 100% of the problems that go on in service. They look at the data and go, the data says, this can be done, let's go do that. Mm-hmm. And so they drive a lot of their decision making from information that they don't have to understand the underlying technical component of it. They just understand, here's what's possible. And that's what they go after. So we think there's a lot of opportunity both in outsourcing service, from it, whether that's a support entity where we're just there helping that manager mm-hmm. make those kind of decisions, or helping them with the learning the information and data, and also in administration. There's an awful lot of pain that we all went through when we had to lay off team members, mm-hmm. And nobody wants to go through that. But if you outsource individual components of that, there are ways to get not only more efficient, get lower costs, but you also have basically a vendor, and it's easier to fire, easier to hire, and easier to hold accountable to a standard because you're paying them to do that job. And those are the things that we think dealers need to be considering as they start to ramp back up. Now, if they get to a point where they need a full-time person in that one and they want to bring somebody in that role, that outsource ability also lends to training, right? Here's mm-hmm. best practices, and this is how we're going to implement this, rather than doing it the way they've always done it.
Well, I agree, and I think here's one thing too. If you're using a virtual executive, there's been virtual CFOs for a while now, and in your case, I think if somebody looked at your data, had the backup of the team that you have behind the scenes that could help that person manage the infrastructure of a copier dealer service department, they could easily do that, and because it should be data driven. But more importantly, legitimate consultants are not emotionally tied to the nonsense of a business. They're tied to the job you hired them to do. And responsible consultants aren't afraid to make you bleed. They're not afraid to tell you what you need to hear. And, and that's what I've always respected about you and your team. BEI has had some tough conversations with dealers. I know when I was there, you would have some tough conversation with dealer owners. But it's those tough conversations that really help us move to the next level. And sometimes I may be a little sarcastic or exaggerate a point, but it's all about, let's try to drive a behavior that makes sense coming out of this. And it scares me that I don't believe we're using data near like we should. Your phone should be ringing off the damn hook with dealers saying, I need to understand this data and how it can help me improve what I'm doing. So here, I got a question for you. I've been doing a lot of videos talking about how dealers should control the infrastructure of their accounts and, get into IT services and vendor management and all these other things. But I'm sitting here thinking to myself, if I'm a dealer with multiple SKU product lines, I'm selling Ricoh and Konica and Sharp and Lexmark and HP and Xerox. I got all these different machines that I'm selling. Is now the time to start really looking at that and consolidating my own inventory of products that I sell?
Absolutely. We've been complaining for the 27 years I've been in business that there's a tremendous amount of built-in inefficiency that comes from carrying. And when we took on MPS, that same thing happened where we were acquiring printers that we never sold and a variety of vendors that we had no relationships with. You know, when you look at the number of individual discrete model numbers technicians have to work on, it's literally impossible to believe they can be that good across everything they're asked to touch. You know, an average technician will touch 180 different models. And then they've got to figure out how to get the parts logistics to carry that. So I truly believe that if we looked at the Southwest Airlines model of not selling every single thing that we could get our hands on and consolidate it around what do our customers need and what product do we need to have to fulfill that specific need the most efficiently for both the customer and us. We've had dealers do this. I had a dealer in Colorado that focused on that, and their profitability went through the roof because their efficiencies got so much better.
Well, we don't want to pick winners and losers. That's not the point. I mean, the market will do that itself. Finances of the manufacturers. I mean, we've seen some of these financials coming back from some of these manufacturers, and it's not pretty, folks. I mean, they're all taking a hit here. So we have to understand there'll probably be some consolidation with them anyway. But I think the dealers need to be ahead of that. And so if I have your data, I could actually look at your data, get some guidance from you. But if I have all these different product lines, we could rifle through that data, and you could tell me, Ray, hey, for your team, you need to focus on, Rico. For another dealer's team, hey, your core, you guys knock it out of the park with Sharp. You figure this out. But at the end of the day, the data's there, and the data will help dealers do that. I'm glad that someone in Colorado did that. That's awesome. Is there anything that your data can do? I like to get out of the box here a little bit, but is there anything your data can do right now that we're not doing? Or maybe we were doing, but it really came to life through the pandemic, where it said, oh, shit.
We'd like to offer to the dealer community, because what's going to happen, what we believe will happen is that, one, the dealers were almost 100% of our customers were carrying way more inventory than they needed.
Okay.
The inefficiency in the inventory management process is pretty bad. So they always had a lot of inventory that was in excess of what they were going to use in 3 months anyway, plus all of the obsolescence that was there. What this is going to do is exacerbate that problem, because we believe that a percentage of every dealer's customers will never come back. Mm-hmm. But their inventory infrastructure was set up as if they were always going to be there.
Sure.
So there's going to be an awful lot of inventory that's going to sit here and head to obsolescence very quickly. So if we can offer to any dealer group, whether that's CDA, SDG, doesn't matter what group, we can offer a program that allows the dealers to be able to buy and exchange parts within the group to help each other reduce this inventory and help each other in the process. So that's a program we're going to do at no charge to help these dealers start alleviating some of the inventory pressure that's going to start building as a function of these customers not coming back 100%, not coming back producing the volumes that they once did, right? Because they've started managing documents differently. All of those things are going to exacerbate this inventory issue. So if you're part of a dealer group and are interested in that program, get a hold of me and let me know, because we can set up an exchange program literally in a matter of days that tells you exactly what's available within your dealer group that you can buy and exchange from each other.
Well, you'd have to be nuts not to do that. I mean, why would you not explore that? So that's because you got CDA and SDG and the BTA folks. So there's probably some other groups out there. But, dealers, that's obviously, that'd be pretty beneficial. Because I think you're right. It's not like I did a video making fun of it, but no one's got boxes of stuff that they're going to bring back to the office and now catch up on copy. And so that volume is gone. It's not coming back. And there's no reason to leave it in your inventory if you can relieve it and get some cash in the bank. So, yeah. Wes, it's always great talking to you. I know these are some tough times for everybody, but, tough times, character's tested, and tough times, business acumen's tested. And sometimes, we might not have all the answers, but we sure as hell ought to be looking for the people that can help us. And in a service environment for the imaging channel, there's nobody that can do this like BEI. There's no one that has done it like BEI. I'm a big fan. I'm proud to say that. But the reality of it is, I want dealers, they need to be calling you. And they need to be looking at the data now. And if it's only just, let me ask you a question. I'm not your customer. I watch Ray's video. I got a base out there, and I want to play with your data. I want you to help me. I know you have an evaluation period, but, I don't want you to have to do stuff for free all the time. But can I do a project with you? Could I say, Wes, I want to hire you guys, and I want you to go through my population of manufacturers and tell me where I really should cut and what I should keep, as an example?
Well, there's multiple parts of the evaluation. So one, when we do this data pull, it's very straightforward in the sense that that it all comes out at one time. And we can do multiple things with that. We can evaluate your service department's efficiency and point you in the right direction for things that need to be corrected. Inventory inefficiencies. We can look at administrative. We can evaluate how well you've been maintaining your e-automate system or your ERP and go, here's what needs to be cleaned up. We can look at your contract billing. We can do a complete system evaluation that will point you in exactly the right direction. And if there's a specific project that you feel is kind of out of your scope, or you don't have the team members in place at the moment to get that done, absolutely, you can hire us and we've got the team members that can fix it for you and get you squared away so that when you start bringing those people back, everything is right where it needs to be.
Okay, well, we all proved that we can work virtual. There's a lot of service managers that have been working from their home directing traffic. That could easily be outsourced to your teams, but that's all they do. So, Wes, it's always great talking to you, and I look forward to having you on again. And I guess, the thing that we got to tell dealers or emphasize the most is if you're not using data, quite frankly, you should sell your business. And if you're not trying to figure out how to manage your business with a decline, and I think dealers have to, obviously, people with business acumen have readjusted their performance for the year. They went in there and said, hey, you know what, if we're at 30% or 40% or 50%, what does that look like? And the best, our largest cost in the imaging channel is parts and people. It's always been that way, and that's not going to change. And, you can help us in both of those areas around the service department and even in the admin side now with the other services you offer. Well, Wes, until next time, I'll see you. My friends, I'm going to end this like I always do. Status quo is the killer of all that will be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo.